Hey everybody, Pastor Corey here. I'm the lead pastor at Court Street Christian Church here in Salem, Oregon. Welcome to another one of our online services. Hey, I got a few things to go over with you today. So if when we do these announcements and welcomes, you usually tune out or go and get some stuff, don't do that today. You stay with me. The first thing that I want you to know is here at the church, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. We're starting to have the final preparations come together. The decorating things are in full swing. Those will come all together in a dramatic fashion in the next couple of weeks. But there's one thing that I need to put on your radar right now because it's super important. And if you don't hear it now, you might miss it. And it's one of our most meaningful services of the entire year is coming up on December 5th. That is our Christmas memorial service, okay? Here it is, December 5th at 5 p.m. It's going to be here at the church, and we will also be broadcasting it online. Now, you'll hear more about this service in the coming weeks, but I want you to put this on your calendar if you are experiencing any form of grief this holiday season, because this is a special service where we slow down and we focus on the reality that sometimes the happiest time of year is actually the most painful time of year if you're missing somebody that you love. And we come together, we sing some songs, we light some candles in honor of those that we've lost, and we lean into God for comfort. This is an incredibly meaningful and healing service to be a part of. If you're grieving, if you know somebody else who is grieving as we're getting into the holiday season here, put this on your calendar. You won't want to miss it. Well, we've been going through this series called A Generous Life, and you've heard me talking about some of our financial goals as a church. Like many nonprofits, we experienced some dramatic shifts throughout the pandemic. And so we've been inviting you and inviting ourselves to look at how we are contributing here at church financially. And our goal is to increase our monthly contributions by $10,000 a month. And if everybody does their part, we should be able to do that. And God's generosity flowing through us should be more than adequate. Here's a tool that we use here at church. It's called PushPay. You can get PushPay from the App Store on your mobile device, or you can also get it just by texting Court Street, all one word, to this number right here, and it will allow you to start giving securely, conveniently. You can set up a recurring gift. You can do a one-time gift. You can do whatever you want, but this is the primary way that people are giving and contributing here at the church for us today. And this is a great thing because you know what? Here at Court Street, we are 100% funded by donations. That means if the generosity stops flowing from people, the conversation here stops flowing as well. And so you are literally, as you contribute, whether it feels like a small amount or a big amount to you, the amount's not important. The generosity is what is, and you are helping to fund this conversation, these ministries, and all the good stories that this church is telling here and around the world. So, PushPay, look into it. It's a good thing. I want to introduce you to somebody, okay? I want to introduce you to somebody here. This picture is a picture of my grandfather. His name is Lloyd Spangler. And I wrote a little bit about Lloyd and Veterans Day on our church prayer list this week. If you ever want to receive those prayer lists with lists of things to pray about, sometimes pastors like myself write a little article and put it in there, kind of a devotional thought. All you have to do is email prayer@courtstreet.org, prayer@courtstreet.org, and we'll get you on this list. But I wrote a bit about my grandfather because he served during the Korean War. And every year at Veterans Day, I take a moment to pause and to just thank him and to thank the other veterans that I know for the unique investment that they have made in our country, in our freedom, in our world. And I just want to say today, as we get into our service, a very sincere thank you to all the veterans out there. If you know somebody and they just popped in your mind, pause the video and take a moment. Just, hey, it's the whole Veterans Day plus the weekend here. Thank them for their service. And with that, God bless you. Let's get into our service today.
searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. A man's empty praise and treasures the fame are never enough. Then you came along and you put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. And I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and faults. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. Turn praise into gardens. You turn songs into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. It's true, you can believe it. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than Sometimes on this journey I get lost in my mistakes. What looks to me like weakness is a canvas for your strength. My story isn't over, my story's just begun. 'Cause failure won't define me, yeah, that's what my Father does. No, failure won't define me, yeah, that's what my Father does. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house, check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Arrival's not the end game, the journey's where you start. You never wanted perfect, you just wanted my heart. And the story isn't over if the story isn't good. No failures never final when the Father's in the room. No failures never final when the Father's in the room. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Prodigals come home, the helpless find hope. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Prison doors fling wide and the dead come to life. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Miracles take place and the cynical find faith. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. The Jericho walls are quaking, the strongholds now are shaking. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Oh, love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house, check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Ooh, you're in the Father's house.
Well, hey, as we get started today, I want to extend a special greeting to our online community. So you may have noticed some of the different cameras set up in here today. Usually what we do is we record our online service as a specific online service on Thursdays. And so, and then it gets distributed all over the place, including to our local cable station, CCTV. But today we're recording in service live, and then it's going to be broadcast this next week. So smile, all of you. You're on camera, huh? Yeah, it's great. Now you know how it feels to be me. And I just want to say to all of you that are watching out there, thanks for being with us today. This is a special service, and you'll find out why in just a couple of minutes. All right. So here's the deal. This church, part of what I love about it, part of what makes my heart go pitter-patter, why I love showing up for work here, is because of the generosity of this place. And this place is filled with generous people like you. And today I want to just tell you a little bit. I'm going to kind of rifle off in just rapid fire fashion here some of the things that this church is involved in here in this community and around the world. You know, I was so excited this last year when even through the pandemic, we were able to work with our child care center. We have a child care center that's on site that ministers to between 40 and 60 families depending on their enrollment. And they got shut down for a while. But because of the generosity of this church, we kept those employees whole through the pandemic while they were shut down. And every one of them came back at the end of that time because they were so excited and they just loved working here. You see, the things that we donate here, our money, Allison and I love to give here, it's funding people. And it's funding stories that God loves to tell. You know, we have this robust partnership that we've got growing with local schools, especially Richmond, just a few blocks from here. We have mentors working with the schools. We have all types of things to just support them. And when we hear about a need or they experience a need, they know they can come to us because they know that this is a generous church. We also, many of you have probably noticed that Salem especially has become a very significant place for people experiencing homelessness. And when you give here at Court Street, part of that money we actually give to other organizations like the Union Gospel Mission. We work with these folks on an ongoing basis, and we donate money to them to help with meeting the needs of folks in that community. We also have ministries around the world. We have a campus ministry that we help support. We have some ministry in Mexico. There's really too many to talk about, but today I want to slow down and I want to focus our service on somebody who's been a longtime partner for us, a family in fact, and that is Craig and Allison Fowler, who are here from Ethiopia. Would you welcome them to the stage as they come up? Come on up, you guys. And we've got one microphone. Where'd the other one go? We're missing one. Yep, there we go. Two? Yep. They're conditioned to just put them directly back. Those are precious things, yep. Craig and Allison, I don't know if you guys noticed earlier too, but in my announcements, you know, this is an important thing to point out, but Pastor Josh was texting like while I was, did you notice that? Like I turned around, he's on his phone. Did you guys notice that? His wife loves it when I make fun of him and draw attention to him, so I just thought that I would. Craig and Allison, these two you guys are missionaries in Ethiopia, yes. And you're with an organization called CMF. We've been partnered with you for a number of years. We fund these folks on a monthly basis, and then usually each year there's one or two special emphases that we put on you guys where we raise extra money for something that God's doing. In fact, we're about to do that at Christmas time. You'll get to hear about kind of some cutting edge stuff and some of the dreams that these folks have. But parents to 3 kids, and you're starting to see them leave the nest now, but they've been on the mission field with you guys forever. But tell us just a little bit about what you guys do. Let's just start the conversation.
Okay, I'll start up. We're essentially church planters in Ethiopia. We've been there for 16 years, for quite a while. We raised our kids there. One of our youngest child was born in Ethiopia. Her name is Anna. So we do a lot of different ministries. I think we'll probably talk about those, but if we're one thing, we're planting churches. We're about planting churches, and we do a lot of other ministries connected with that.
Awesome. And we have a slide up here that shows some of these different ministries that you guys are involved in. You don't like to sit still. You guys like it busy because there's a lot here. In fact, we're going to talk about even more as we get into the interview. And, you know, what I hope today is, through this interview, is that I hope that God stirs up in your heart just this connection to these two as human beings, because you two are just very approachable, very down-to-earth people that I just delight talking with you. But I hope also that God stirs up this vision of how our ministry dollars are funding people like you and funding some of the stories and the pictures that people are going to see. And it's a beautiful thing. And when we see good things like that, it just activates us to be more benevolent and to have a bigger vision for our lives. So church planting, prison ministries, leadership training, water projects, leading other missionaries, and a partridge in a pear tree, and other stuff that we're going to talk about. But let's start with church planting. Tell us about that.
Okay. Well, if you hit the next slide, you'll see one of the things that we've seen a lot of lately is baptisms, new believers coming to Christ. One of the main areas that we focus on right now, we plant churches in different pockets. So we don't just plant one church at a time in an area. We plant clusters of churches. We've found that in Ethiopia, that's a really effective way to do it. So one of the clusters of churches that we're working with right now is in a place called Asosa. So the picture you see on the board is from, 3 weeks ago, Al? Where we had some more baptisms. We've had over 130 baptisms in this cluster of churches in the last year. So you can see there's a lot of growth.
Yeah.
It's not the only cluster we work with, but we've been planting churches for the last 16 years. Kind of a little history. We lived in a very remote area for, how long? 11 years? Something like that? 11 to 12. In that area, we planted over 22 churches, essentially, in that section of the country. We've now transitioned to planting churches in a bunch of different sections. We work with evangelists. So in terms of church planting, really that's our heart. That's what we do. And some of the other ministries, I think we'll get to those in a second, like the prison ministry and other things, are really ways of reaching out and helping our church plants to grow and to have ministries and things like that.
Yeah, and let's get into the prison ministries, because I know, too, that there's, you didn't set out to get involved in prison ministries. It came about as really kind of a God thing, right? Yeah, that's a great story. Tell us about that.
Yeah, if you'll see the next slide, about maybe a year and a half ago, I found myself, not even that long ago, about a year ago, I found myself sitting in a cafe with these two gentlemen. The one on the right, his name is Lamesa. The one on the left is named Harun. I was actually just a bystander at this cafe. I was with Lamesa, who is a church planter, and I've been working, Allison and I've been working with him, and actually his wife is a good friend of Allison's as well. We work together to plant churches. Well, we were in Asosa planting churches, and he remembered that he had a long-lost friend, somebody he hadn't seen in a long time, and so we got together with him. The backstory to their friendship is that they served in the military together, in the Ethiopian military, about 15 years ago. There was an incident where Harun, the one on the left, as you look at it, the one on the left, he killed a man in an altercation with the local population. Lamesa, the guy I work with, he helped Harun by helping him escape, essentially, because the local population was trying to get even or have a revenge killing against Harun. So his commanding officer, who was Lamesa at the time, helped him escape, go back to his hometown of Asosa, and they hadn't seen each other for 15 years. Kind of fast forward a little bit, Harun had obviously been in Asosa. He went back to his hometown, and he became a prison guard in the prison there. And eventually he had worked his way up to being the head of the prison. So he's the chief officer there in the prison, Commander Harun, that's what we call him. So he's a really important person in the prison. Lamesa got out of the military. He actually became a Christian after that, and then got into the ministry, and that's how he ended up working with us. So I was there in Asosa with Lamesa, and he said, I know this guy from Asosa, so let's see if we can find him. We sat down, we had coffee, and as we began to talk to Commander Harun, Lamesa and I both started to realize that there was an opportunity coming up. Because Commander Harun had talked about how much stress he was under as the head of this prison. There's about 1,500 prisoners and guards that live and work at this prison, and they had no water at all in the prison. There were actually riots that were happening in the prison because, as you can imagine, not just no drinking water, no water. So they were getting, actually once a week, the city was giving them a little bit of water, so they were just barely on survival mode. Well, as kind of the conversation came around to what I do, what Allison and I do, I said, well, we have water projects. One of the things we do, we plant churches, and I was kind of talking about our ministry. And Commander Harun, who happens to be Muslim, he's from a people group called the Berta, which are 99.8% Muslim. He said, well, would you consider doing a water project in our prison? And I said, I would, if you would consider letting me start a church in your prison. That's how we started the prison ministry in the church. So it was a really cool God thing, the way that God used this situation from 15 years ago. So 15 years in the making, God had a plan for the folks there. And that's, now we get into the prison once a week. I work with evangelists, even when we're not there in the city, in the town, every week on Wednesdays we do a program, and also on Sundays at the prison. So it's a really cool opportunity. And what's really neat is our inroads was not another Christian, but actually a Muslim Bertha man who was our inroad into that situation. So it's a really neat ministry. The next slide you'll see Allison. Maybe you can talk a little bit.
Just add real quick. There are about 1,500 prisoners in the prison. That's prisoners, guards, and there's one section of the prison that's just for women. There are about 20 women in the prison, so we've been able to connect with them as well. This picture you see now is me connecting with. It's not a prison like we normally picture in the U.S., but the prisoners, they're not in cells per se, but they have an area that they can be out and about in. They cook their own food. So it gives us a chance to connect with the prisoners and also with the guards, many of who are not Christians. And then the other cool opportunity is that we've been able to help with some medical care in the prison. There's a clinic, a small clinic in the prison. They also have a strong need for medical care. They get very limited medicine, so that's been another inroad and a way to connect with people. It's really exciting. There are a lot of opportunities.
And you're actually a nurse, and that's been part of what you guys have been able to be a blessing and meet practical needs in Ethiopia is through that training that you've gotten. And I didn't know this, but Craig and I were talking a couple days back, and you can be imprisoned over there in Ethiopia just for being on the wrong side of the political conversation. And so that's part of the population that you're working with is people that it's just like the powers that be now, these folks spoke out, now they're stuck into this horrific condition environment. You guys are just showing up, making life better with clean water, and also just sharing the love of God. It's a beautiful story. So yeah, let's keep going through this. There's so many things to show. What's this next slide about right here?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, one of our major ministries is also just training church leaders. So what we've seen is that planting churches is great, but the way to grow a church is through strong leadership. So we focus a lot on training leaders. You can hit the next slide as well. You can see just examples of folks that we work with. We do trainings at least once a month with different leaders from around the country. We target specifically churches that we have planted or been a part of church plants with. We've been involved, Allison and I have been involved in over 25 church plants in Ethiopia throughout in different parts, but we also work with other church plants that other missionaries that we are connected with have been a part of. So one of the key facets of what we do in terms of the longevity, in terms of growing the church, is to train church leaders.
Yeah, you guys really have become established now to the point that you're leading leaders, including, I know part of it is you're helping to lead other missionaries that are on the field, which is really awesome. And Craig and Allison they're super humble people, and so sometimes you guys will use phrases that I know mean something different to you than it does to us. Like you say, like, backcountry. And I think, like, I'm running up, Highway 22 to Lyons, or something like this. But when you say backcountry, what type of a trip does that actually look like for you?
It's about a 14-hour drive total. This is to the place where we originally started doing ministry. Some of it's paved, some of it's gravel, but the last 25 kilometers is basically driving through forest, through creeks, the last 25 kilometers can take several hours depending on the time of year, depending on whether it's the rainy season. So you have to fight your way in.
Yeah, so you're really out in just these remote places and, things that we could only, imagine. It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and, maybe you should talk a little bit about the clinic. Allison has been involved in the clinic work for a number of years, but maybe just talk a little bit about
Yeah, our inroads into that originally was, in order to get into plant churches, was through medical care. So we were in an area where they had no previous access to medicine, and so our way to get in was the way the government would allow us in, was to start a very small clinic in that area, which was a great inroads for us because we were connecting with people, we were building relationships, we were meeting a basic need, and then we could move into church planting from there.
Awesome. medical care, clean water projects. I mean, just all the things that you guys do. When you show up, it seems like the quality of life for folks just gets better. And we've been blessed over the years to get to partner with you. We've helped with some of the different well projects. I remember one year we helped with the medical clinic in particular, some of the pastoral training that you guys do. All of it's just been an absolute delight. Like whenever we story tell you to the church, like everybody just gets excited about it. So you are well loved here. And let's jump into some other stuff here. So you talked about the prison ministry, the church plantings, the water projects. Let me ask just kind of just a small question. When you're stateside, what do you miss about Ethiopia?
Gas station hot dogs, probably.
What?
Ethiopia. Oh, when I'm in the States?
When you're in the States, what do you miss about Ethiopia? They have gas station hot dogs
Not
there?
the hot dogs, no. No, they're hot dogs I don't like.
I would say that I miss, I don't know how to explain it, but life there feels more raw. Like everything is more real. It's not sanitized, the smells, the things you're coming in contact with. It's very, very real. You're seeing people just survive. And at first, it was very difficult for me, but now I would say I miss that and just the smells that you're coming in contact with and people's hospitality. Ethiopians are extremely hospitable people, and they have very little to give, at least from our perspective, but they're willing to give it.
Yeah, amazing. I think Craig answered actually what was going to be my next question, which
Yeah,
is when you're there, what do you miss about the U.S.? Any creature comforts or anything that we have that you're just like, I wish I
do like gas station hot dogs.
Gas station hot dog. Yeah. Anybody else out there? Does anybody want to confess? This is a safe place. I think there's one. I think there's one over here. So you got a buddy.
They're really good.
Maybe I need to give them another go. No, I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna live. I don't want to take yours.
It's better in the morning because the longer they sit there,
the longer they sit there. What about you? Are there any creature comforts or just kind of things that we might take for granted here? That it's just like, oh, when I come back, it's so nice to have this.
Well, I think things are just more easily accessible here. It's a lot of work to prepare food in Ethiopia. Just the buying vegetables, you have to clean them, you have to cut them all yourself. You can walk into a grocery store and get already cut up cantaloupe or something. That's really nice.
Living.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff. You guys are 16 going on 17 years in country there in Ethiopia. How have you seen the ministry evolve over the years? Like maybe have you seen anything that's kind of been surprising to you that's just the beauty of God has grown over that whole time? I mean, that's almost 2 decades. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just talk about what we've been doing, and then I'll tell a story about that.
Okay, well, I was going to share, I think one thing I think to answer, it might not be a direct answer, but I have learned about myself is that I can do more than I thought I could do. And I think that's something I've learned over the past, 16, 17 years is we went with a particular thing in mind that we would be doing, but the flexibility and the ability to adapt that we've had to learn, for me, has been, I would say, a beauty that I've seen God do in my own life, because there are things I didn't think I could do, but as ministry changes, as our location changes, as political things change, I've found that I have the ability to step out and fill in gaps that I didn't think I would be able to do when we first arrived, and for me, that feels like something beautiful.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, she's learned how to amputate hands and ears and all kinds of different things with the medical, which I think she was surprised she could do. I will tell a little story because I think there's a story that exhibits kind of some of the changes and really cool things that we've seen in Ethiopia. And this is one of those pictures. It's towards the end, I think, where there's my 2 kids are with 2 other Ethiopians standing there. So if you keep going, you'll find it. But one of the things that we did early, there it is, yep. One of the things we did early was we moved into a very remote area, and when we moved there, we had 2 kids at the time. Our son was 4, is that right? Our oldest son was 4, and our other son was 1. So about 2 or 3 years into it, maybe 2 years into it, our oldest son, Zane, who's now 20, he's a college student in Illinois, he was trying to make friends, get out and get into the community. We were in a remote village. Honestly, we were the only white people that most of the people there had ever seen. So that's how remote we were in. And he decided to start going to the school there, just to learn the language, just to make friends, just to play a little soccer. It was a really difficult time for him, as you can imagine, for a kid who's 6 years old, trying to figure out life and trying to make friends. One of the people that he met and got to know is one of the guys in this picture, the guy on the very far right in the white shirt. His name is Hamsalu. He is just a little bit older than Zane, a couple years older than Zane, but he became Zane's friend, got to know him. He actually started to come to the church and just became a part of the church. Fast forward now to last year. Last year, we were planting a church in one of these the areas called the Sosa, which I mentioned before. And in this church, we started seeing a lot of interesting people come in, a lot of the Gumuz people. We work primarily with the Gumuz people, who are connected with government jobs or coming into Asosa, it's the capital city of our state, in order to just kind of further their life. Well, one day, this guy showed up. His name is Hamsalu, and he knew Zane from a long time ago. And we were talking to him, and we were just asking about his story, because we had seen him obviously grow up when he was younger, and then apparently he had gotten a job with the government, and now he was in Asosa. And he's now since become a deacon in our church, so very involved in our church. But when he was telling us about how he got connected with the church, it was really interesting. He said, actually, I'm a part of the church because of Zane. Our 6-year-old son, he didn't directly witness or anything like that, but what happened was when Hamsalu was a young kid, this was the first time he'd ever thought about the world in bigger picture other than being a farmer in a rural area. He said, that was the first time I ever thought my life could be anything different than that. And I started going to church. He did become involved in the church. And then years later, he's now a deacon in one of our churches in a different part of the country. That's probably in a microcosm what we are doing in Ethiopia. That story of how Hamsalu's life was changed as a young kid and now has not just a bigger view of the world, but also a relationship with God. Ultimately, that's what we're about in Ethiopia.
I just love that too, because it's kind of that you just don't know how the little interactions. Oftentimes, it's the little interactions that have the most profound and lasting effect on people. Yeah. And each of us is experiencing that. Although we get our blinders on as we're rushing through life and stuff, but then you encounter just the wonder of God through something that all of a sudden pops up 10, 12 years later, whatever. Yeah. So beautiful. Hey. I often think of myself sometimes, and I have to check this attitude within myself, because it's this sneaky way that pride kind of comes in. That sometimes I feel like I'm going to go out and I'm going to share with somebody and give to them, and their life is going to get better. And it's kind of this generosity from me to them because they need it. Now, you guys have you've left the comforts of your American culture. You've gone over there. You've made this investment to be generous. But also, some of the best stories that you've told me are how you've encountered the generosity of God from the people there to yourselves. Would you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. We thought that we were going to, impact their lives, but we've been shocked about the way that they have input into our lives, and things we've learned from the Gumuz people are pretty amazing. Share the story about.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we experienced right away when we moved into a remote area was this disconnect between how we were there to help them, but how we were actually pretty helpless in a very remote setting. Tribal people that live in remote settings are extremely ingenious, have a lot of ingenuity in the way they survive and live. And we would get all the time. I'd plant stuff. We'd plant a garden or whatever, and we do not have green thumbs at all. But we were living with people who were subsistence farmers for a living. So there would be times when I had a guy who helped me plant banana trees on our property there. And I planted them somewhere, and he just kind of, I don't know if that's a good place, so let's move over here. And he'd always come over and hang out with me and help me work through how I was going to survive, because obviously I was not going to survive unless he helped me to survive. He's like, I don't know how you're still alive, Mr. Craig, is what he told me. But another one of the times, it was in the dry season. So the seasons are rainy and dry, not summer, winter. It's a rainy, dry season. We're just entering the dry season right now. So everything was just bone dry. There was some grass, but not a lot. And there was this beehive in one of the trees behind my house. And I had the brilliant idea, because I'm just a genius, to take gasoline and pour it into the beehive and then throw a match into it and see what would happen.
What?
Yes, I know. Again, they were asking, how does this guy survive out in the bush? I don't know how I survived. So I was in good shape. I had like a blanket so that I could put any fires out that, I was prepared. And as soon as I threw it in, everything blew up, boom, fine, no problems. But then all of a sudden, flaming bees came out of this tree. And they just went all kinds of different directions and lit very small fires. Fine, I went over, put one out, but then there was one over there. And I just kept running around, and it got out of control. Our
compound was covered in tall, dry grass in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, it was not good. But I quickly learned that I had neighbors that cared deeply about me. The Gumus came over because they could see. They were aware of, these fires are very dangerous in their areas. And the village, that our neighbors basically came over in droves, probably 30 of them. And they put out the fire in almost no time because they're very good with fires. They know fires. And they helped me survive. We didn't burn down our house because of this. But that was an example of the ways in which they were looking after us.
Yeah. And when you say stuff like you were living remote and just kind of getting started, that actually looked like a tent for like the first 6 months, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's 6 months in a tent. That's maybe where it connects to your earlier story about finding strength you didn't know that you had, like living in a tent with kids in a remote place. That's amazing.
Yeah. For the first 6 months, we'd be out, doing our dishes or whatever, and we'd just have 30 people standing there watching us do something. And honestly, the first, this is terrible.
They were probably wanting to make sure you didn't start another fire.
Right, they probably were just
He's not going to get gas, is he? Because we got...
the first words I learned in Gumus was, as nice as I could, I said, please go away. That's not my finest missionary moment there, but those were the first words I learned in
Privacy,
Gumus.
please.
Yeah, because it was just all the time.
Hey, let's get to something personal. Tell the story about how you two fell in love.
Well, actually, I'm going to let him tell this, because I'll just say we met in college in Illinois, but...
Yeah, I'll have to... we are generally rule breakers. We're challengers. We like to challenge things. So we actually met while breaking the rules in college. We went to a small Christian college.
What's this story rated, by the way? Because I didn't hear this in advance. Keep going.
I'll keep it clean. I'll keep it clean.
Actually, I'll tell it.
Okay, you tell.
So we were, a friend and I decided that we wanted to go find some guys to kind of go hang out in the woods and break the rules by smoking cigars. This was our rebellious time. And so we went and we knew of a couple guys and we're like, hey, let's go get these guys and, go sneak off. And anyway, Craig happens to be in the room and we're like, hey, why don't you come with us? And he was like, okay. So we met in the woods smoking cigars, breaking the rules.
Breaking the rules, breaking the law.
And I was a cool guy. I had a motorcycle back then. So.
And you had a motorcycle, okay. Yeah, that's right. I gave you guys a little newlywed game before church today where they each answered what their answers are. You remember the newlywed game, and then you got to say what your partner's is. And this was actually a lot of fun to read your responses. And so do you prefer savory or sweet? Was just the first one. We started kind of easy. And Craig, your answer was savory. And you said that you thought that Allison's answer would be savory too. Her answer, though, was sweet. She likes the sweets. So we're learning stuff, all right?
Okay.
If you could
that surprises me there.
That surprises you, okay. Maybe you tried to convince her that the gas station hot dogs were like really like where it was all too many times, too far. If you could be an animal, what would you be? Allison, you said?
I said I would be a bird.
A bird. Craig thought you were going to be a deer. A deer.
Well, it's a specific kind of deer. Like, I'm surprised you didn't say deer.
And then you thought that Craig would be a cheetah, but his spirit animal is actually, this was beautiful.
Well, it's a cockroach. They are survivors.
They're survivors. You're a survivor. Yeah, that's great. That's great. How about this? Who's the better driver? You guys agreed both on this. You both said it's Craig. Okay. And then who's the big crier in your relationship? You agreed on this one too. What'd you say?
Craig.
It's Craig. He's the crier and the driver. And then some hidden talents. This was good. Craig, you said that your hidden talent is you can make your ears squeak. What the?
Yeah.
Do you want to hold the microphone up there? Is this going to get like...
It's not easy to do, but...
All right, that's enough. That looks painful.
There we go.
It takes a while.
It takes a while. You got to really pump them up.
There's a lot of
first or something.
space
You gotta
in
get
there.
sweaty first.
If you want to stick around, they'll be available in the lobby. They can talk you through it. And then you put for Allison that her hidden talent is that she can touch things and they fly.
Yeah.
Like, is this...
It's crazy. Like
I have a habit of accidentally flicking things. Like
Okay.
just one short example. One time I was trying to unlock my car. I'd come out of the grocery store and I just set a gallon of milk on top of the car so I could unlock it. And I just touched it and it flicked over my head and hit the black car next to me and splattered milk all over the side of the car. So I got in my car and drove away as fast as I could. But but I've had a few little odd things like
That's
that
how we
happen.
do things here, too. It's great. So that's great, yeah. Hey, we're getting up to our timers. Let me just give you a couple more quick ones here. 2 decades, what is it that still keeps your heart pitter-pattering for this work? What is it that makes you come alive? I know you're only here for a month and you're already eager to go back. What is it?
Yeah, it's church planting. It's helping people to come to a relationship with Jesus. I work with some really awesome guys and gals. We work with these folks who have suffered a lot for their own faith, for the gospel. We have a friend who was killed not long ago, this last year, who's a church planter in an area that he was planting churches. We have another guy, Saeed, who is in jail right now for his faith. I know multiple evangelists who have been detained and harassed, especially in Muslim areas, for their faith. So for me, what really drives me is to work with people who are that serious about their faith, who are that driven to change people's lives. And so that's what I would say for me is working with people like that.
And what is it about the people of Ethiopia that your heart beats for these people and you're praying for them, you're investing in them? What is it about the Ethiopian people in particular?
I think at this point, I would say it's the connection we have. That wasn't always the case. When we went there because we felt like there was a need that we could help meet, which we've already talked about. We talked about them also meeting our needs. But I think at this point, it's like Craig talked about, it's the relationships that we've built up and the mutual trust we have for each other. We care deeply about the people we're working with.
I know you mentioned also, Craig, when we were talking, there's some character traits, kind of some cultural character traits about the Gumuz people in particular, that those were just striking to me that have touched your heart. Some things about community, and I forget what the other one is, but would you share about that?
Ethiopians in general, but Gumuz people specifically are very community-oriented, very family-oriented, but even more than that, they look after the community as part of their community for many years. We've lived with in the village setting. There have been multiple times where they have looked after us. We had one example where somebody stole my shoes from a long way away, and they caught him 3 hours away from our house, and they said, "You're not wearing your shoes. You're wearing Mr. Craig's shoes." So they would look after people in their community, and that really is, I think, a really cool element of their culture, honestly.
That's a cool thing, too. Craig and Allison will be available out in the lobby. You've got other stories to tell. We're kind of up against the clock here. But I know one of the things that you said that struck me was, there's a strength and there's something good to celebrate about the individualism that's here in America. And there's a strong emphasis on that. But that community piece, that they make decisions in community and minded like community, it's kind of thinking of others, and just always filtering it first through that I just think is such a beautiful thing about the work and how they've connected with you. So, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Hey, let's bow our hearts and let's pray over these two. There's so much more to share, and this is just a delight. We could keep talking all day, but let's take it before God. Father, I just want to thank you for the delight that it is to get to connect to these stories through Craig and Allison. I thank you for their kids. I thank you for Zane, Ezra, Anna, and just the beauty that this family exudes, both in how they're connected to each other, connected to you, and also how they're connected to and ministering to those around them. Lord, I pray that this ministry that they're involved in would just continue to thrive. Continue to surprise them. I know they have a college ministry on the horizon where they're going to start a campus house, and I just pray your blessing over that ministry. I think of the way that they're positively affecting folks in the backcountry, in the prisons, just in their everyday coming and going life. God, what a beautiful thing. Would you just continue to fill them up as they pour out, and would you inspire each of us to do the same, to live with that connection that Craig talked about, where even the small things sometimes come back years later and we realize that it was a divine moment. Lord, help us as we step away from here to just cherish that, to welcome it, to anticipate it, and to just walk in the mystery and the beauty. And I pray that beauty over Craig and Allison. In Jesus' good name, if you agree with this prayer, say amen. Amen. Well, hey, one last thing I want to do for you guys. We want to spoil you guys because you're missionaries and we just love you so much. And so Amy, I think, is going to come up. We got some gifts for you guys here. And so let's get these gifts, and we just want to shower you really publicly with these. And so what do we got here, Amy? We've got some gifts coming out. Nope, there's a mystery. I hear something rustling back there. This better not be a bee's nest and some gasoline, or it's about to get real.
I'm good with those.
Oh, okay, here we go. There we go. What's this? All right. Okay, here's some flowers. These are for Allison. Okay, some flowers for Allison.
Thank you.
Oh, this is a spa basket.
Very
Oh,
cool.
that's
Thank
for
you.
Allison
Thank
also.
you.
Okay. Oh, there's some chocolates there. The sweets.
So the
sweets.
sweet,
I didn't know
yes.
your answers
Yes.
till this morning, but we got the sweets for you too. Cool.
Thank you.
And then something for Craig too. What's this here? Nope, this is a check made out to Allison Fowler. This is a real check, but it just says you get to go on a shopping spree, and so we want you to have that as well. And is there something for Craig, or just?
I'm with her. That's good.
We'll share it.
We got something. We have any? Go look. We got to have something back there. Craig, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know. Who did we put in charge of Craig's gift? You did hers. Who did this? Pastor Mark, our youth pastor, he got your gift. So here you go. Here you go. I'm sorry about that. Yep, we saved the best for last. That's probably what it is.
Am I supposed to
I don't
open?
even know what's in there. Let's take a look together. What is it?
Gas station hot dogs.
Oh, Mark. Oh, Mark.
There's two of them. So.
Hey, everybody stand up. Would you guys just give God a round of applause? And these two, we're so happy to spend time with you. Love you both. Thanks for being here with us today. Yep. And Kate, I want to be with you when you spin that check. God bless you guys.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
I'll take those mics too. All right, they'll be available in the lobby. God bless you, church. We'll see you next week.